Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Francisco Picado from Language Access LLC. It's a pleasure to be back with you all. And as always, the DOTI, as part of its efforts to reach out to the community, it offers interpretations into Spanish for these meetings. For those of you who haven't gotten a chance to use that feature before, you can click on the icon that says interpretation, the little globe, and select the language of your choice. Buenas tardes a todos y bienvenidos a esta reunión de como Sari ofrece interpretación al español para estas reuniones. Si no ha tenido la oportunidad de usar este servicio, por favor, pulse el globito de la interpretación en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla y seleccione el idioma de su preferencia. Thank you, Alan.
Great. Thank you so much, Francisco. Thank you so much for being here this evening. It's great to have interpretation services provided. So I just wanted to thank DOTI again for making this possible for everyone. And I see Jake is joining us here as well. Gary, are you with us? I can't see if you're here or not to go through and do attendance. So we've got a couple of new board members this evening. We're excited to welcome. But oh yeah, there's Gary. Gary, would you like to dive in and take attendance?
I'm here.
Great.
Roll call. I'm trying to keep up with folks as they join in. And give me a second to catch up. I've got a couple new people that I don't recognize. So I wonder, Alan, if you could just kind of touch on the roster first so that I understand who is all, are board members that are attending.
Yeah, great. Well, perhaps this is a good time to start with introductions. We've got a couple of new board members tonight. We have, and Anita, if you don't mind promoting June Churchill, she's one of our new board members and may not be familiar with the panelist criteria. So there's a way to bring her into here. That would be very much appreciated. And we have June Churchill joining us this evening, and Andy Janes. Andy and June, both new board members. Andy, if I see you popping in here first, if you don't mind just taking 30 seconds or so to introduce yourself to the group. We're excited to have you. Welcome.
Sure, thanks. Excited to be here. I'm in Living Council District 7. I live right on Lincoln Street, so pretty major transportation corridor, and it's lived on Lincoln the whole time I've been in Denver. So transportation and infrastructure issues, something I care a great deal about. I'm in a one-car household, and that car is very much my partner's, not mine. So I'm mostly a pedestrian and bus rider. So yeah, just excited to dive in and learn a lot and see where I can be involved.
Great. Well, welcome. We're excited to have you. Also new this month, some of you might have seen before, is June Churchill. June, we're really excited to have you as well, if you don't mind introducing yourself to the group.
Yeah, I'm June Churchill. I use she, her pronouns. I am the at-large appointee for Councilwoman Gonzalez Gutierrez. I am a professional policy analyst by trade. I'm the current Denver bike mayor, but I've got a broad interest in sort of transportation topics. Right now I live in D10, pretty much like a block and a half from the Capitol. But for 6 years I lived in D6. For a short amount of time I lived very close to D2. And yeah, I'm just, I'm a budget person. I've tried to do a lot of good legislative work on transportation stuff, and I'm just happy to be here and see what sort of insights I can bring. And also, I've been car free for my entire adult life. I don't have that kind of money to own a car. You can always catch me riding around on my little folding bike to, get anywhere. So, yeah.
seeing June float her Brompton bike is one of life's true pleasures. So June, thank you so much for joining us. Andy, it's great to have you as well. I'd also want to acknowledge, I don't know if she is here tonight or not, but Lucia Brown is going off the board. And I just want to thank Lucia for all of her amazing service to the board over the last few years. She's been here since the beginning. So we're really grateful for everything that she's done for us. And Jamie Lewis, you had your hand up for a second. Director Lewis, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, you stole my thunder. I was going to say the same thing. Lucia did a great job on the policy committee, was always there and active, and just wanted to thank her for her service and welcome the 2 new members. Thank you.
Great. Gary, those would be the 2 new people to the roster. And if you want to just go through and make sure anyone else is here that you may not have been able to pick up just based so far on roll call. And I think you're on mute still too as well, Gary.
I am. Okay. Did I see Alicia? Okay. Amy? Okay. Brian? Carol? No. Christopher Johnson? I don't see him either. Ian? Is he joining us?
Yes, I am here. Yep.
Very well, Ian. And Jonathan, did Jonathan come on? I don't see him. And let's see, Tinsley. Do I see Tinsley? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. So far, we have 11 attending members, which is not quorum. Could I go through a couple other folks that have signed on that I don't recognize their names? David Jula. David, who do you represent?
Gary, there's going to be a lot of presenters here this evening. And David, you're welcome to introduce yourself if you like, but I think this covers everybody on. I think you did a good job of grabbing everybody on the board. And I did see Amy hopping on, so welcome, Amy. It's great to see you from District 3 as well.
Nice to see you too.
And I may just real quick ask our DOTI staff members, just if you don't mind putting in renaming yourself to a DOTI staff member on there. So
That would be terrific. Thank you for that.
yep. Thank you.
Okay, I can forego going through my list of people I don't recognize. Alan, we now have 12 attending. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, with Amy, that'd be 12.
12, and we need 13 for quorum.
Great. I'm expecting we'll pick up one more here before the end of the evenings. So
I'm here and
Paul,
no one called
there
my
he is,
name,
Paul.
So
Outstanding. And
All right, Paul.
great. Well, we made quorum. It's great. And just friendly reminder to everybody, if you don't mind renaming yourselves, you can click on your upper right-hand corner of your screen. You should be able to, of your picture, and should be able to choose rename, and can put full name as well as what district you represent and pronouns if you care to do that too. In terms of the agenda for this evening, it's really exciting. We're really grateful to having folks here for public comment. And also stormwater operations and maintenance is here. They came in kind of on a last minute request, so we're very grateful to have them as well. Also, Denver Moves bikes. We're going to have a little update on the empath and the Vision Zero study. I think I'm butchering the official title of that, but I'm really excited to see it. Then we're going to talk about budget this evening. Amy, you had your hand up. Did you have any questions? You good? Great.
Sorry, it was by accident.
No worries. Well, perfect. Well, let's dive in. Ninita, do we have anyone signed up for a public comment this evening that we can promote?
Yes, that will be Alejandra Castaneda. I hope I pronounced the name right.
Great.
Alejandra, I'm just promoting you to the panelists. Please let me know.
Great.
Thank you.
Alejandra, welcome. It's great to have you. I see you're over on the side of panelists. You got 3 minutes. Take it away.
Hi, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Alejandra Castañeda. My name is Alejandra Castañeda. She, her, ella pronouns. I'm here to ask a question, I guess, because I'm not sure, and also put this on your radar about the federal BRT project that's currently happening. I know this is a CDOT project from the State Department of Transportation, but this is something that means a lot to me and to my community, and is in our city, in Denver's limits. And as you may know, the BRT project is holding open houses to see what the community thinks about all their alternative, which they're recommending as side running alternative for the BRT project, which would allow a bus only lane all the way from 120th Avenue in Westminster to Inglewood, Dartmouth. However, they're not thinking they're going to allocate a bus only lane between 50th and 20th here at the heart of our city, where the bus would find the most congestion, would have the most difficulty trying to run fast, reliable service. The Denver Moves Federal Alternatives Analysis established that the side running bus rapid transit is recommended as the ultimate high capacity transit vision for this corridor. Despite high overall ridership, if you've ever ridden the 31 bus like I do often, you know that it's very well used by a lot of people, and mostly people of color and people who are low income, unlike other bus service that touches downtown or other areas of the city. Where there is little or no traffic congestion, transit riders can expect to spend almost 50% more time traveling along this corridor as compared with people in cars. So people who are low income are already paying a higher time tax trying to access essential services. It also serves some of the city's most vibrant and engaged neighborhoods. Active and engaged citizens have expressed support for recent transit planning that have identified Federal Boulevard as a high priority transit corridor. Population growth is expected to concentrate near Regis, which is at 52nd Avenue, and also the Valverde neighborhood, down a little more south from 20th, and then employment is expected to grow north of Colfax around the Stadium District, and also in the vicinity of Loretto Heights campus. So we're going to have these people that are, we're going to be increasing population growth in the north of Denver with jobs south of that, and then we are not considering a bus only lane in the heart of our city. So I'm wondering if the board can write a letter to CDOT, since you care about Denver's transportation infrastructure, saying that that's not acceptable, that's not what BRT really is about, even with enhanced transit or signal prioritization and all of that. I don't know if this is possible or if this is something that the board will care about, but I definitely will be advocating for that, and I hope to have your support. Thank you so much.
Alejandra, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's great to see you and appreciate your advocacy for better connections along the full Federal Boulevard corridor. And yeah, I'd love to put the consideration for a subcommittee or a chat about a letter to our odds and ends part of the agenda this evening to see if other folks might be interested in that. So thank you, Alejandra. Nanita, is that it for public comment this evening?
Yes, Alan.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you again, Anita, for getting us all set up on the webinar. We appreciate all your work and with the agenda as well. So thank you again. Nick, would you like to take it away for an update from DOTI leadership, or anyone else you'd like to present to that?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Again, good to see everyone. I'm Nick Williams for the new folks. I'm the Deputy Manager and Chief of Staff for the department here. And when our Executive Director, Amy Ford, is not able to join, I certainly enjoy standing in here. And I'm always at these meetings anyway on there. But Amy is out of town this week on a trip with some other folks from the city. So out to Boston. So excited to hear what she comes back with from that. I've got a few items I wanted to kind of thank and then give you guys a heads up on. First off, a thank you. Last Thursday, we had a groundbreaking event for the West Colfax pedestrian and infrastructure safety project out there. Very exciting project, something that I think a lot of people have been working on for a very long time. So to see it come fruition is very exciting, but this is going to add medians, crosswalks, improve sidewalks, and do some redesigns on the streets to prevent dangerous left turns, and really exciting kind of project. And I think something we're really looking to see more of going forward on that. Upcoming June 26th is Bike to Work Day. And the city, kind of in the similar tradition to previous years, will be hosting an event in the morning. I think kind of the 7 to 9 a.m. period in front of the city and county building on that. And we'll have speakers. We'll have Amy out there. I know Amy rides. I would be surprised if she did not ride out to that on there. We'll see what kind of hair day I'm having if I'm going to ride out there. But looking forward to that, and certainly would invite the committee to come out and join us on that. Another item this group has heard throughout the past year and a half since we've implemented volume-based trash pricing, some updates, provided a more formal update to City Council on their Land Use Transportation Infrastructure Committee since we last met on there. And if folks are interested to watch that and kind of see how that program is progressing as we move along and face some challenges that it has, certainly feel free to reach out and I can point you to it. Point you to the presentation, to the video, or I can drop it in the chat on that. And last thing is this week or this month, I believe we, along with the agenda, sent you a list of different public events that are upcoming on here. And this is a big thanks to our Office of Community and Business Engagement team that put this together, and basically just trying to let you know what folks will be doing, what's going on over the next month there. So if you have any comments on that, something you'd like to see more of or less of, I suppose, on it, just let me know on that. But excited to be able to share that information with you. And certainly if you have any questions on any of the individual events on that, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Mr. Chair, with that, end of report. Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Director Lewis, take it away.
Yeah, Nick, can you kind of just briefly talk about 307 and the possible dates coming up for City Council?
You got it. Thank you, Director Lewis. Yes, so the sidewalk citizen initiative implementation, also known as 307, that committee has been making very strong progress and has gotten to a point where we've pretty much coalesced around a recommendation or a series of recommendations, most importantly on the fee structure and how we want to approach that, and a few other things that we think will make it easier and better to implement on that. So where we are right now is we've done that. I am working through and making sure that our executive branch, including Amy and Mayor Johnston, are briefed up on that. We'll do some just internal vetting, and then anticipating in either late this month or early July, that will start hitting the wires of City Council on there. So feel like we're making very good progress. I know a number of you have participated in that, and I will say it remains one of the most challenging things I've done working at the department. Makes scooters look easy at this point, but very pleased with what the committee has come up with, and are confident. I think as confident as attorneys can be that it is compliant with current Colorado laws around fees, and are hopeful it is well received by City Council and the public when it is once it hits their agendas. But yeah, very positive progress on there. I can see the light at the end of the sidewalk here, I suppose.
And I would add, we're hoping to maybe get an update from one of the co-chairs of the Sidewalks Committee, Jill Locantore, hopefully for our July meetup, if scheduling works out well for her.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Nick? No, great. Nick, thanks for that update. Really exciting. And thank you again especially for those of us that live in Sloan's Lake and West Colfax for y'all's work on that safety project. Really, really exciting to see the groundbreaking, and exciting to my wife working at DPS. It's excited to see that she will be able to
emocionante
Are you all able to
ver
hear
que
Francisco,
ella
or
va a
is that
poder
just me?
hacerlo.
Francisco, I think there might be something
Yeah, I
off on the
need to remove
settings.
Francisco, sorry.
Oh, no worries at all.
Thank you.
That was beautiful Spanish translation, though. I appreciated
Yeah.
that. I'll pause for a
My
second.
apologies.
No, I'll pause for a second to get the settings updated.
And I'll just say, yeah, it's our pleasure. It was real exciting to have folks from the committee out there, but most of all to get that project up and off the ground. I was talking, Jill and I were talking. Oh gosh, and that actually reminds me of an update I forgot, Director Lewis, on the sidewalk ordinance. You may also have seen that City Council has put forth an amendment to the ordinance to change the billing date, the no earlier than billing date, from July of 2024 to January of 2025 on there. And that is done. That was certainly done with our agreement that yeah, that's probably the best to give folks some certainty. And really what that is giving us the space once we get the ordinance, without presupposing what's going to come of the ordinance process on there. We need a little bit of time to be able to do the kind of back end technology ordinance or billing, loading, testing, all of that to make sure when those first bills go out that it is smooth on there. But yeah, but as I was sitting there in the committee with Jill, we were talking about the West Colfax project, and she said that's something I think she'd been working on for about 10 years. So patience is a virtue, and eventually, yeah, we break ground.
We'll go to June here for a quick second. I also wanted to add, I think, to what you said, Nick, also gives us time for community engagement and education, as there are some significant discount opportunities for income restricted residents as well that we want to make everyone aware of before they get a bill. So in theory, if everything goes as recommended in those recommendations from the committee. June.
I'll keep this very quick. I know early last month there was that scheduled big traffic safety press conference. Do you have any updates on sort of when that's been rescheduled that can be shared publicly, or is that something you all are still working on?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we are still working on trying to find a date on that. Yeah.
Okay, because every single month that we sort of delay that press conference is another month that we push back goals, which is another month that we push back projects, and I prefer us to come out the gate strong on that. Personally, I'll just say.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks for your thoughts, June. Well, without further ado, so much of the time when we're talking about DOTI, we're talking about the T element of it, but the I element is incredibly important. So I just want to welcome folks from more the infrastructure side. David is here to chat a little bit about that. And David, I just want to say we recognize this was a little bit of a last minute ask for you to attend. So I just want to say thank you so much for dealing with the flexibility of our scheduling. And we're excited to hear more about stormwater. It's such an important thing. I've seen neighborhoods that historically were underwater in Denver. We had a big rain event, are now much drier than they used to be. So it's such an important part of our city's process to keep the water moving when we get these storm events, which we're starting to see, it feels like, more and more often. So David, we'd love to hear more and learn more from you and your team tonight.
Great, thank you. Hi everybody, my name is Dave Jula. I'm the Senior Director of Water Services in DOTI, and I am a civil engineer with water resources background with over almost 30 years experience, with specialty in stormwater and flood management. And joining me, supporting me also is one of our senior engineer managers, Ahmad Sufiani. So if we have any questions, and I'm going to share my screen, got a little presentation. Nanita, can you give me permission to do so?
Yes.
Please.
I think you got it now.
Yep. Okay, everybody seeing it? Good.
Looks
Okay.
great.
Great. All right. So, as you mentioned, we are part of the I and DOTI infrastructure, and I'm going to start a little more big picture. We can focus in on stormwater. I'm going to try to focus on stormwater a lot, but it all is one system. and that philosophy is something that we've adopted the city. Recently, we completed a strategic plan for the citywide water systems called One Water. And the gist of that is traditionally, our industry has siloed and focused on different aspects of the urban water cycle, whether it be creating potable drinking water or treating our wastewater and sanitary, or protecting against floods, both from a river or from urban flooding. And the point is, it's all the same water. It's just in a different place in the cycle. So it's something we completed in 2021. And if you want to check that out, you can find it at denvergov.org/onewater. And it's a framework that we've been using to work with our partners more closely in a very uncertain water future. So just for everybody's, get everybody up to speed on how it works in Denver, and it's different all over the world, all over the country. I'll start in the upper left, where we get our regional water supply, typically from the mountains, sometimes from the other side of the mountains. And Denver Water is the key to that. It's a separate utility from the city, although it exists due to a city and county of Denver charter. So Denver Water collects our water for drinking and treats it and distributes it throughout the city. The city has responsibility for stormwater and conveyance to the waterways and protection of flood for our citizens, for lives and property. We also have collection systems for part of the sanitary or wastewater, sometimes people call it, systems, and to get that treated. So everything that flushes goes into those pipes. And then Metro Water Recovery treats our sanitary wastewater. And if you don't know, they treat it to EPA standards, and then they put it back in the river. And then the next people use it downstream. And then we have the Mile High Flood District. We're fortunate to have a local flood control district that helps us manage flood risk, and both financially and technically. And then we have the Greenway Foundation. That is a nonprofit that has been a huge advocate for the river and really instrumental in revitalizing and restoring large portions of the river. So water services within the city, we focus on that storm and sanitary and management of our systems, and that's, like I said, what I'll focus on mostly. I'm not going to read you my mission. So yeah, like I mentioned, there's conduits under all the streets, and not only streets, sometimes yards, sometimes places we don't want them. But one will carry storm, so excess rain coming, the roads and the ground can't soak up, especially in an urban environment. Goes into the streets, into inlets, into pipes, and eventually we get it into our waterways. And then the sanitary obviously has to be kept separate and goes to the wastewater treatment facility that Metro Water Recovery does for us. And we do a lot of our capital projects, expand those systems, repair those systems, and we have an asset management inventory of them and try to keep them in good repair. Despite if you don't know, Denver used to flood a lot. In 1965, we had a massive flood. It was, in today's dollars, over $4 billion in damages. It was a 100-year event, so a 1% chance event that happened in 1965. And because of that flood risk, the Army Corps of Engineers built Chatfield Dam and Bear Creek Lake. And even before that, Cherry Creek flooded all the time. And in the 1930s, they built Cherry Creek Dam. That's called the Tri-Lake system that the Army Corps of Engineers owns, operates, maintains. That protects us from massive floods. However, we still have a lot of regional flood risk because, I mean, it can't capture it all. If a massive rainstorm happened downstream of Cherry Creek, there would be flooding downstream of the dam. But it does protect us from massive ones that we used to get. The other risk that we have from flooding is from urban flooding that I mentioned earlier. When the pipe system that we have to convey the excess storm, what we call runoff, into the waterways is overwhelmed, that water starts to go wherever it wants to go. It goes down the streets. If it gets outside the streets, it can go into people's yards and unfortunately could threaten properties. We do our best to avoid that from happening, but it is a reality, and it's very common across the world and the country. It's just the cost to be able to capture any size rain event is so astronomical that it's just not feasible. We also have a water quality program that is required by the EPA. It's called the MS4 permit, Municipal Separate Storms Storm Sewer System. And it's a permit that we have to operate our storm collection system and outfall it into our waterways. And there's rules with that, with what kind of water quality we can have with that. So we do have treatment systems. We do UV treatment. We do trash vaults, and try to capture as much of the nasty stuff that just gets run off from gets caught across the city and into the system before it gets into our waterways. We also, one of the innovative things we do is green infrastructure. If you've been on, the picture on the right is Brighton Boulevard. They look like, planters with plants in them, but they're actually designed to take the water, instead of it just coming off the street into an inlet, into a pipe, and then into the river. It goes through a media bed and plants that naturally use nature-based processes to remove pollutants before it gets into the waterways. And so that's a program that we've been expanding over the years and I'm really proud of, and it continues to grow. And it also has the ancillary benefits of combating climate change, with reducing the heat island effect and just air quality and all the things that green things do for us. So the way we're funded is, and we have an enterprise fund. So that's great that we're protected from the ups and downs of economies and other societal pressures. So it is just dedicated to managing our storm and sanitary system. We collect through the fees. We have a sanitary fee, a storm fee, and then a developer fee is the bottom one, the safe fees. And so we bring in, in 2022, we brought in about 190 million. We spend that, the way we break that up. The largest thing that we pay for is Metro water recovery. We just get a bill every year, and we have almost 40% of their users. So we have the biggest bill, and we're the biggest user or customer, for Metro water recovery. And that's usually around $60 to $65 million a year that just goes to them to treat our sanitary. Then we also have our operation and maintenance group that's about 60 million a year. And then capital, that's like new shiny things, right? The 16th Street Mall had a lot of storm infrastructure associated with it. And then we do, since we have the enterprise fund, we can bond for bigger projects, and then we do have it. So we have debt service associated with that. Just give you an idea about what we're talking about on an annual basis. And then we do have, for that capital program, we have a 6-year plan that rolls every 6 years. And by charter, we have to update it every 6 years. And so that outlines okay, we're going to work on these projects for the next 6 years. We're right in the middle of one right now. It's from 2022 to 2027. From the more the numbers, you can see how many people we employ in the city, and our assets are valued at over $1.2 billion. A little interesting thing, our storm system is we continue to have to expand that and make it larger because urbanization creates more water that can't be soaked up by the earth. due to impervious areas. So that risk gets higher as things develop. A really interesting thing I always find find people are interested in is the sanitary system is way older. It's like 100 years old, but because of water efficient toilets and fixtures and just the water conservation efforts that have just become standard practice, we have more than enough room in the pipes. We don't have to expand those unless something really big happens, like you put a bunch of high rises on a block, and then you might have to upsize a pipe. But typically we can't, so we can rehab them, and we can use like these slip lining things with fiberglass that lines them, and we get another like 100 years out of them. So that's just kind of a cool fact. But you can see the numbers we have there for that. But even with all this work we do and all that money put into these assets, our master plans still show over a $4 billion need. And I showed you before, we're bringing in like we're doing like $60 million a year. So you can do the math. We're way, under-resourced for the needs. Some ongoing and recent and upcoming projects. Right now, if you don't know, we have a levee. We have one levee in the city, and it's in Globeville. It protects them from the South Platte River, and it just needs to be brought up to current standards. And that's a big ongoing project that has a lot of interest in it. We had a very, very exciting last year. We had an issue with a deteriorated sanitary pipe that was under 56th Avenue, and we were surprised with in that first slide I had, you might have seen the big sinkhole, the huge hole in the ground. That was what we found when we started working on repaving 56th Avenue. But everybody pulled together and got that through. I mentioned before the lining. By rehabbing our sanitary system, gives you an idea of what that looks like. And then we're close to finishing the design on Weird Gulch flood mitigation, which will protect DHA and the new HUD funded housing that they put in Sun Valley. Because right now they're at risk of flooding. And then we also have a program that we call Storm Watch, and we work with Mile High Flood District very closely and monitor when storms are coming. And we have a standard operating procedures for when floods do happen, who does what, where we go, where sandbags are necessary. The levee has special requirements during a flood. And that's it. I wanted to be quick to leave it open for questions, and we can go back to any of those if you want to. So with that, I'll open up. I hope that was what you guys were looking for.
That was great. Thank you so much, David. I'll dive in. I don't see any hands up yet, but feel welcome to actually, Joe, you got yours up first, so dive in first.
Yeah, I just had a question on the stormwater work. I would think of stormwater along Colorado. First of all, it's going very well, and the traffic hasn't been held up very far. Where are you on that project as you're, those around 13th and 14th, all that work that's been going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's been going on for decades. It's part of a system. We typically have to work starting downstream as we increase the capacity of things, because if you did it upstream, then it would just go to a dead end, right? So that's a huge vault where a bunch of different pipes are coming in. I don't know off the top of my head exactly where we are with that project. I don't know if Ahmad, do you know the schedule on Colorado?
No, because that's a different group managing that. That's our capital improvement project. So basically operation and maintenance don't deal with that till the project is done and we take over. But we can get you some updates on that later on.
But yeah, if you would like that, we could definitely. And our website, usually if you Google it, it's usually has good project updates on it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, June.
Yeah, first of all, I will say I read the One Water Plan a few months back, and I don't know how much I retained of it, but I did read it. Question. So you mentioned the 100-year flood standard in your presentation at one point. I know one flaw with those standards is that they're based on historical data, and of course, climate change is happening, and what was a 100-year flood might be a 50-year flood. So do you do forecasting based upon future risk instead of just relying upon sort of those federal standards, which again, like may underestimate risk?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
do you do climate
great
forecasting?
question. We're actually we're really excited that CASR got NCAR a grant focused on looking at climate adaptation, and one of those is how it's going to affect precipitation. Yeah, I've been following this for years in our industry, and people are, other than just applying broad like safety factors on top of the historical data, nobody's come up with really good ideas because the climate models aren't finite enough to say like, all right, because right now we say a 2.5-inch rain over an hour will be a 100-year event, and like you mentioned, that's based off whatever we know has happened in the past, and our that's a small amount of time. If we have like 60, 80 years of record, that's amazing for us. So to extrapolate that in this current environment is not adequate, but the science is still catching up on what is the right answer. What is that? So the short answer is no, but we're working on it. And we have NCAR helping us. That's great. Really excited about that.
Jake, go for it. Thanks, June. Great question.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. David, forgive me. I'm working off of an update we got about 2 years ago, so I may mess up some of the details here, but I know that around that time, I think spring 2022, there was an announcement of a investment from the bipartisan infrastructure bill for like $350 million into South Platte that was like joint between Denver and the Army Corps of Engineers. I believe Nick gave us an update on that at the time. How does that factor into the One Water plan, and is that bringing net new? I know there was some ability to like expand the floodplain, if I'm remembering correctly, 2 years ago, but
no,
is that factor into that well, and is that going to help build our asset in stormwater management?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The water program, which is now, it's the Waterway Resiliency Program, is what it's been named. Water, WATR. So the water program is going to be a great asset to our system. The Weir Gulch Reach 1 project that I mentioned, that's part of it. The flood mitigation along Weir Gulch is a part of the water program. There's also a revitalization, restoration of the South Platte River between about 6th Avenue and the north side of Denver. And then there's also some flood mitigation in Harvard Gulch, along Harvard Gulch. So that program is ongoing. They hired a consultant to help them start, getting that thing going this past year. And yeah, we're really excited about it. And it's gonna have it is a one water, we call it a One Water project opportunity. If you look at the plan, there's a list of those, and we talk about that constantly with our partners. Obviously, Mile High Flood District is very heavily involved in it. The Greenway Foundation has always been very heavily involved in that program, and continue to work with our partners at the Army Corps and across the city, across DOTI.
Awesome. And are there any other potential grants we could get from that infrastructure bill? I know there were lead water, which I think Denver Water is working on, but I don't know if there are other segments of the bill we could go after.
Yeah. I mean, I think the bills they're set at this point. That was a couple years ago, and it was a heavy lift to get everything we did get in there, right?
Yeah.
But there are other grants that we do. There are FEMA grants. you know, a lot of times we Parks gets really good GOCO grants that often are, you know, end up being in parks that are along our waterways that we can leverage into like, you know, stream restoration and things like that. So yes, we're constantly looking for other funding partners to help supplement our fees, our fee-based enterprise.
Love it anytime we can just find money.
Yeah, right. There's usually a match, but I mean, we heavily weight that in prioritization of projects. I mean, if we can partner on things and get more, that's in Mile High Flood District is a perfect example of that. Everything's a 50-50 match except maintenance. They cover all that. But any capital projects are 50-50. So, you know, we just double our money by working with them.
That's great. Well, that's our time on the agenda. David, I wanted to thank you again. We've had storm water and flood mitigation on our list of topics that we've wanted for some time. And again, we really appreciate you hopping in here at the last minute. So thank you again for joining us. It's great. And I learned a ton. It's fascinating to hear that our brownwater sewage lines are actually doing fine right now. It's the stormwater ones that we're focused on upgrading. So yeah, that was really interesting. Thank you again for coming with us to join us tonight.
Thank you.
Great. Next on the list, we've got Taylor Phillips and Brett Boncory from the Denver Moves Bikes team and the Denver Moves team. I'm really interested to hear from them today. They've also been kind of flexible on their schedule. We're going to have them come last month and move some things around. So Brett, Taylor, again, thank you for being so flexible. As you all may know, they've done some really interesting studies over the past 12 months, everything from speaking with people on the ground to I was one of the people that was, they were measuring my heart rate while I was biking around on different streets and things like that. For volunteers, you could volunteer to be part of the study. So Brett, Taylor, why don't you guys take it away? Thank you so much for joining us to give us an update on the learnings that you all have had off of these interesting things that you've been working on for the last few months.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, Alan. And while I'm introducing myself, Nadia, it looks like I need permission to share my screen as well. So if you wouldn't mind getting that going, that'd be great. But yeah, thank you, Alan. Like Alan said, my name's Brett Boncory. I'm an engineering supervisor here in the transportation design group of DOTI. So we do all the engineering design of almost all of the transportation projects that go in. Including our Vision Zero and Bikeway projects. And today I am joined by Taylor Phillips. Taylor, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey guys. I think I was here maybe 2 months ago now, so lots of familiar faces. But yeah, I'm Taylor Phillips. I'm a planner on the bicycle and pedestrian team. I work really closely with Brett and his team on bringing projects from line on a map through implementation.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so Taylor will be here to support any kind of planning or public involvement type questions. Great. Well, today, can everyone see my screen first of all? Okay, great. Today, as Alan hinted at, we're here to give you a review of the preliminary findings from what we call our Vision Zero and Bikeways evaluation project. I'll give you an overview of what that project entailed. And now that we have some preliminary findings, we'll go through those findings in 3 different categories: our neighborhood bikeway findings, protected bike lane findings, and our Vision Zero treatment findings. And then talk about some next steps, how to move forward. As you'll see, we learned a lot, and this is why we did it. On that note, I mean, like the good Yogi Berra quote says, I'm going to completely butcher it, but you know, if you keep doing the same thing over and, you know, to keep continuing to do the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. And so that's not what we want to do, and expecting to get the same result there, right? And so if we are saying we're going to meet goals of our mobility and safety goals of our projects, we want to test out, evaluate, see if we're actually hitting those. And so that's the general purpose and spirit of this project, and we have learned a lot, as you'll see. So generally speaking, we came up with performance metrics and research questions, as we're calling them, for 3 different project types, as I alluded to earlier, and that's neighborhood bikeways, protected bike lanes, and Vision Zero projects. That was really made up of, if you go to an even more granular level, we actually also looked at 9 distinct treatments within those projects as well. You can see them here, but there are curb extensions, chicanes, so on neighborhood bikeways where the street kind of wiggles back and forth between bulb outs, basically. Corner wedges, which are the little speed bumps on the corner of intersections with some flex posts that you might see around, diverters, which divert traffic, median refuge islands for pedestrian refuge islands, pinch points, where on a mid block, you might see 2 bulb outs kind of coming together to pinch the roadway, so to speak, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, speed cushions, and traffic circles. And so just some sample research questions that we were looking to answer as part of the study were, in general, how do volumes change, whether that's volumes of bicyclists or volumes of vehicles? How do these treatments actually affect the perceived comfort of users? We call a lot of our bikeways, particularly our protected bike lanes and neighborhood bikeways, high comfort. And so how well are we achieving that goal of being high comfort? Do vehicle speeds change when we want them to? Did turning vehicle speeds change across, say, pedestrian or bike paths? And then another example question is, what's the level of yield compliance at our crosswalks and RFBs? So we collected a lot of information. This is a general map of all the treatments. I'm sorry if it's low quality on your screens, but this is a general map of the locations that we measured and the treatments that we measured, those that were listed before. And we did this with, I would say, some conventional measures that are still proven. Tube count, so if you see the little pneumatic tubes placed across the roadway, we used video to observe behavior. And then, so those are the quantitative metrics. Then we also used qualitative metrics, one of which is an online survey in which we pushed out, and I'm sure a lot of you participated. So for those of you that did, thank you for participating. We're really proud of the fact that we received about 1,700 responses through this survey. And this survey really drilled down to, hey, you can fill out for 2 or 3 of these bikeway corridors. Which ones do you want to do? Are you a resident? Are you a non-resident? And then just talked about the respondents' experience with that. And so this gave us really valuable data that we can drill down into different levels of granularity. And then, as I'll speak about after as well, we also are piloting a new data collection technology called Empath, which Alan also alluded to earlier, which I'll chat about. So here's our project timeline. You don't have to look at the bottom, but generally speaking, back in 2022, we started the pre-data collection. It's a long time ago, but when you think about it, we really had a big rollout of our bikeways with our community transportation network construction. And so we had to get everything ready and going and get some pre-data before that, let all the projects go through and get constructed, which was about a year in and of itself, and then wait 6 months for traffic patterns to normalize, then collect after data. So hence the long timeline that you're seeing here. But generally speaking, that's what you're seeing here. That's when we collected pre-data, then that qualitative feedback with the survey data, did post-data collection, and then now we have some preliminary findings to report out on, which I will jump into now. So if anyone has questions, just feel free to raise your hand and we can go kind of on a conversational basis here. And I'm going to be a little high level and we can ask any questions that we want. So our neighborhood bikeway findings, these are high level takeaways. If you're not familiar with neighborhood bikeway, these are local streets with slow traffic and low volumes of traffic through the use of traffic calming elements. So from our survey data, we found that 63% of people felt that conditions improved for walking and biking after the neighborhood bikeway was installed. Of course, this varied depending on which bikeway you're along, but this is the average. We saw an average decrease in vehicle speeds of about 10 miles an hour, or 10%, excuse me. and an average decrease in traffic volumes of about 25%, and an increase in people biking by about 50%. As you might know, like I mentioned, we have very specific volume and speed thresholds that we're trying to get to for this. And we, for the 11 neighborhood bikeways that we measured, 8 of them did get to that 20-mile-an-hour target speed. And so we're really happy about that. I'll talk about the 3 that didn't in a second. And all of our bikeways, after our diverters were put in where appropriate, ended up meeting our volume thresholds. So also really pleased to see that. What we're doing with that data, kind of lessons learned. As I mentioned, we did evaluate what we called our speed cushion pilot, where we implemented speed cushions. So those are the kind of like, they are colloquially referred to as speed humps, but really we call them speed cushions because they're the ones that have the channels that go through the speed hump, for not only bikes to go through, but fire department vehicles to respond. 100% of those speed cushion locations met our speed and volume targets. So as a result, we're going to continue to do those, and traffic circles, the same thing. They also met our speed and volume targets. Continue to do those, and we are currently developing a speed cushion policy on how we're going to expand the use of speed cushions on more neighborhood streets. Like I mentioned, 8 of the 11 neighborhood bikeways that we measured met those target speeds of 20 miles an hour. The ones that did not, they're mostly due to them being on corridors that needed some significant traffic diversion. When we did that traffic diversion, it was really effective, and there's less volume on those neighborhood bikeways. And when you have less volume and less friction on that neighborhood bikeway, it has increased in not getting our speeds down as low as we want, right? So as a change to this, we're really learning that we need to emphasize our spacing of our traffic calming elements, even and almost anticipating when you put a diverter, you're going to decrease the volume and you're going to need even more traffic calming elements. And so our rule of thumb for this is to get to a 250 to 400 foot spacing of those traffic calming elements to really reduce speeds. We did find that chicanes, so the ones that kind of you wiggle through a couple bulb outs, did not decrease speeds. They were not as effective as we would have hoped. And so our change there, we're going to minimize the use of chicanes on our future neighborhood bikeways in favor of the proven traffic calming measures that we know work. And then another additional thing here with the neighborhood bikeways, something that we learned is people really want crosswalks at traffic circles. With the change of going usually from a 2-way stop controlled to a traffic circle, there's even more confusion about where people go, who goes where, is what we found. And so moving forward, traffic circles are going to include marked crosswalks with them. I do see June, you have a question. Yeah.
Very quick clarifying question for that change of spacing that you mentioned between speed reduction elements. Is that an effective, is that saying that the elements were too far apart originally, or were they too close together?
Too far apart. Great question. So yeah, and that spacing comes from the design principle of if you put a traffic calming element in space isolated, what has been seen is that people slow down at that traffic calming element and then speed up to make up their time. And so what we have found is that you really need to have those spaced close enough to where folks just don't bother, and in many cases cannot speed up between them. And so that's when we found these neighborhood bikeways to be most effective, is when we do hit that spacing, which we have on several of our neighborhood bikeways. Now going to protected bikeways. If you're unfamiliar with protected bike lanes, just as a reminder, these are higher vehicle speed and volume streets that have actual vertical elements that separate bicyclists from people driving. Great feedback from the public on these. People, 77% of people did feel like conditions improved from walking and biking after a protected bikeway was installed. We saw a decrease of 20% in traffic volumes along these PBLs. Might be due to the PBL. This could be due to other network factors there, but that's what we saw. And along these, we did see 12% of people increase in people biking along these PBLs. Just some lessons learned here. We use diagonal and parallel, what we call corner wedges. I wish we had a photo here, I'm sorry, but again, these are where we use little plastic speed bumps, usually on the corners of intersections, so that most vehicles will go around them and turn slowly around them. And then the larger vehicles that need to have a wider turn path can easily track over them, right? We saw that these did decrease turning speeds across PBLs as well. So we are planning to incorporate more of those and continue to incorporate those at protected intersections. And then with the PBL, protected bike lane in treatments, maintenance, we've heard a lot about maintenance. And so we interviewed our maintenance partners as part of this evaluation study and found at high traffic intersections, you have these flex posts and curbs getting frequently hit, and it results in some pretty decent maintenance costs that we're starting to incur. And so pivoting from there, working with our maintenance ops partners, we're learning to incorporate other materialities like the Ziklas. That's the material that we actually incorporated recently on our Blake and Market protected bike lanes downtown. If you've seen those, a lot more durable. They're replacing those a lot less. Actually, I don't think they've had to replace them once since we put them out there. Or concrete curbs, particularly at high traffic intersections where we want those things to last longer and have better life cycle cost. Jake, see your hand up.
Sorry, also just clarifying, trying to making sure I'm understanding this. Are the wedges, are those the, I think I've maybe heard someone on staff call them armadillos or something?
So no, that is, the armadillos are a Zikla product. So they're talking about the more durable protected bike lane product, the curb that is in the buffer of the bike lane that goes along with the flex post. So you have the flex posts and then the curbs. We're going to go more towards using those armadillos for this reason because they're less maintenance cost. The corner wedges have the actual black and yellow or black and white plastic speed bump that's only like about 2 or 3 inches high that you can run over. There's definitely less of them out there. We have them along Stout Street between 24th and 28th on that protected bike lane. Trying to think where we have some more, but yeah.
I think there's some on 13th, but they're not part of the bike lane or bike lane.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Yep. We've used them in curb extensions as well. Yeah. Outside of a bike lane. Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Julie.
If those things are what I think they are, those are really, really hard on wheelchair users, those bump things in the road. They really create an accessibility barrier. And because the sidewalks are such a mess, I know me and the other wheelchair users, we use the bike lanes to get around because bumping on those sidewalks that are all broken, the bike lanes are just so much easier. So please don't put any speed bumps on bike lanes.
Sure. Yeah, and yeah, that makes complete sense. And I'll say 2 things about that. So we usually we're not putting them in crosswalks, I'll say that, or sidewalks, but I understand and completely acknowledge that we do have wheelchair users using our bike lanes, and that makes sense. I will say on our upcoming bikeways, especially for those that are along streets that only have like a 3-foot step out curb, like call a Hollywood curb, that's really not ADA accessible and folks are really using the street. We have started to place our closest vertical element at least 5 to 6 feet off the curb to allow for wheelchairs to use where you'd probably navigate adjacent to the curb in the roadway. So that's great. Well taken comment. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, because I mean, to be honest, what I would probably do without that is I would just zig out in the street whenever I saw that, and that's probably not what you want people doing, but that's it's just like there's only so much bumping you can do, your body can handle in a day. And so it's just, I mean, obviously if you see a car coming, you're not going to do that, but you know, you don't always see it. And so, or they don't always see it, whatever. But so I that's great if you can make it so that we can still get by. That's fantastic.
Great, thanks. Looks like Jamie has his hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, you know, with the 307 and the sidewalk project, hopefully getting launched in 2025, and we just mentioned the Hollywood sidewalks. There might be some competition between bike lanes and getting Hollywood sidewalks replaced. You know, they're going to need maybe to pull the curb out a little further or take property on the other side of the easement. I'm just curious if you guys have anticipated that competition for that space between bike lanes and expansion of our sidewalk network.
I can attempt to speak to that, Brett.
Sure.
So I think, yeah, it's a good point that we have limited right-of-way space and often the pedestrian kind of wins in this situation, and it depends on the street and what the prioritized use is for that street. But I also kind of see 307 as an opportunity that if we can move curbs when we're building new sidewalks, we can build sidewalk level protected bike lanes that have space for people walking and then a separate space for people biking. And that extra funding that 307 allows us will hopefully open up a few more doors and opportunities for better bike and ped infrastructure.
Sure. Tinsley.
Yes, I have 3 questions. So we'll start. All right, so I really like the data that you were talking about with some traffic safety and how it slowed down a little bit around some of these protected bikeways. I'm curious, what are your plans for D11 for more of those protected bikeways? That's one question. The second question would be related to 56 and Tower Road and the accessibility with bikes in that area, as well as just that general intersection altogether is now named Denver's worst intersection. So I'm just kind of looking out for my community and just asking if there's any plans with this team to kind of advocate for, you know, creative ways in handling some of those safety concerns, especially with pedestrians. And thirdly, I think actually that is the last question. I'll let you know if I think of more, but I'll let you get started.
Cool. I can take what plans we have for future projects in D11, and that's sort of the Green Valley Ranch neighborhood. So I know that there is an active bikeway project on Green Valley Ranch Boulevard. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, that I think is
Yeah.
a protected bike lane this year.
Yeah.
So that's the only.
Yeah, it already wasn't protected, and then I think Aurora had to come and do some things, and now it's getting back protected.
yeah, I think that was like a repaving.
Yeah.
So that's the only one that I know of in the near future that is funded, being constructed.
I think you have Uvalde, Kittredge.
Yeah, Uvalde and Kittredge.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Uvalde and Kittredge are also near-term construction
I would
projects.
love you to also keep in mind the new kind of almost freeway through Maxwell Place. That is also where a park is, and a lot of people frequent their bikes in that area. And now, because there's no stop sign or anything on that street as cars are kind of racing through, it would be really nice to have that added protection. Just kind of throwing out a suggestion for you.
Yeah, I love that. And my next point was going to be that those are kind of the 3 active projects that I know of right now. But the project that I talked about a couple months ago at this group, the Denver Moves Bikes update, is looking at where do we have existing bikeways? So Maxwell Place, great example, where there may be need for upgrades to protected bike lanes. So if you're seeing that there's a speeding issue, that might warrant upgrading that to a protected bike lane. And that project will have a big public outreach push with the map that everybody can
Yeah,
comment.
the intersection is huge and very scary, and it takes a long time to get across on a bike or a wheelchair or anything with wheels. So it's really important to maybe start thinking creatively. I love that you're willing to do that, to try to kind of amend some of these things in your best ability. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
And Taylor, if folks are interested, I think if I remember from your last presentation with us a few months ago, community will get updates late summer or early fall on kind of what your thoughts are and next steps for those if folks want to engage more on the network itself, right?
Yep, correct. We'll have a big public outreach push starting in August. That'll go through September, and I'm happy to come back around that time frame to give another quick update and presentation and show everybody the online map tool.
Thanks.
Great. And I know I said we'll do questions throughout. How about I have 2 more slides, and maybe I'll do the rest of those slides, and then we can just dive into all the rest of the questions. How about that?
That sounds great, Brett. Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
I'm sure there'll be more, just in case my slides answer any of the questions that are upcoming. So, Joe, I see your hand. We'll get to it in 2 minutes. So the last category of projects was on our Vision Zero project. So this is predominantly on our high injury network corridors where we see the most crashes resulting in the most serious injuries or fatalities. What we saw in these was that we had 28% decrease in average high-end speeders on 4 of the 6 corridors. 2 of those corridors, we're not totally sure what happened, but we think it's a data issue and we're looking into it. And then 7% decrease in 50th percentile speeds along all the Vision Zero projects that we've evaluated. Decrease in turning speeds at the corner wedge locations, which we've kind of already talked about. And then a very cool stat, we saw a crazy percentile increase in yield compliance at our rectangular rapid flashing beacons. There's a reason why this is an FHWA approved treatment for pedestrian crossings, and so had a great increase there. One thing is when you look at it when you look at the we did one of the projects we evaluated was speed limit changes on our HIN corridor, so literally just changing the sign on our HIN. It didn't do much. The average 85th percentile increased slightly. And so this is telling us something. We need to do more on those. We need to look at other traffic calming infrastructure to reduce those 85th percentile speeds other than just changing the signs there. And then one other thing we saw, we were looking at pedestrian refuges. So these are little pedestrian islands that we put in the middle of streets so that, you know, cars need to go around them to continue on in the street. The ones we measured didn't affect vehicle speeds that much, as we would have hoped. They still did, and they had great results when it came to pedestrian crossings and facilitating safer and more comfortable pedestrian crossings, but didn't affect speeds. And so really what it told us, if we want to have that 1-2 punch with pedestrian crossings and speeds, we need to make tighter curves and tapers, basically transitions leading up to that so that people would actually slow down or forced to slow down. And then I think these are my last 2 slides here. I also alluded to the empath pilot. This is data that we were piloting to use. It's anonymous geolocated heart rate data using fitness wearables that folks opt into. Sounds like Alan was one of those folks who opted into it. I was too, yes. What it does is calculates a relative stress score out of 100, with 100 being high stress and 1 being a low stress event. And we did this, we kind of had to narrow down our scope, so we couldn't really do it for all the corridors to evaluate all of them, but we narrowed down our scope to evaluate 5 corridors, and that's 16th Ave protected bike lane, Stout Street protected bike lane, 13th Avenue protected bike lane, Bayard Avenue neighborhood bikeway, and the 30th Street neighborhood bikeway. Those are the ones that just had the most sample size that allowed us to have the best data. The good news about that is that average stress score along all of these corridors decreased on all 5 of the evaluated corridors. That's like very good for us. It says, hey, we improved it. What gets really interesting is when you really look down into the corridors themselves. And so this is just a sample that I took from the 13th Avenue PBL, going from South Platte River Trail in the west over to Broadway. Now, some of this stuff is way too small to understand, to see, but I think one cool thing you can see, we got this data on an intersection by intersection basis. So you can see the pre-construction and post-construction level of stress. Like I said, this one overall decreased stress, which is great. You can see a couple intersections though, say in the west, Umatilla and Osage, where we are hypothesizing that stress increase is maybe related to the fact that when you're going along the 13th Avenue PBL, you've got really nice protected infrastructure, and there's a lot of large driveways in that part of the corridor for the freight and the trucks and everything that need to pull in and out of those institutions. And so we anticipate that stress is maybe related to the kind of going from protection to like none for a while. Those driveway consolidations are not necessarily something we have completely in our purview to do retroactively. So it's one of those things, but and then we did see a higher kind of, you can see in the data, the RTD light rail crossing, there is a little bit of a stress increase. We could not widen that with the project to get a bike lane through there. So it's unfortunately a part where you do have to share the roadway, and higher stress scores are there. So it kind of did validate the data a bit for us. It generally speaking makes sense. But we're TBD on exactly how we're going to use this new data, but it is definitely an interesting source of data as we discussed. So, and then lastly, we'll be developing FAQ sheets on all of these that will be public facing, that talk about the evaluation project and how we're moving forward. And speaking of which, we are planning on, we do have plans to establish a more robust and expand a project evaluation program that continues on into the future, that we can continue to do this, continue to see if we're actually meeting the goals that we set out to do, and how we can adapt and change our design, planning, and construction practices to get there. So that's all I had. We'll take questions now. If we have, hopefully we have time, Alan. I don't know.
Yeah, as riveting as the budget discussion is, I think this is an important topic. Clearly, a lot of folks are engaged and interested. So, Joe, take it away.
Yeah, first of all, really fine presentation. And in the field I'm in, we call this evidence-based design. So it's really something that, right, we can all grasp and understand. My question basically is with the 20 is plenty. I wonder that's a new wrinkle in all of this stuff. And if you plan on kind of doing any research on that, I know it's not on bicycles, but how that might affect, or you have any ideas of is that going well, and is that going to be a successful project?
That is a great thought. We didn't do it as part of this one because it hadn't been fully rolled out yet. And but moving forward, I think that's a great thought for consideration. Certainly, Taylor, open to your thoughts on this too, but something that we can run by this Vision Zero program and see if that's something we throw into future evaluation.
Yeah, I think it'd be a cool thing to evaluate next year as we have all of those signs fully rolled out and completed. Our neighborhood bikeway corridors are all already 20-mile-an-hour streets. So that's kind of baked into the neighborhood bikeway assumption and the evaluations that we'll do there. But I think that'd be a cool research question for next year.
Yeah, thank you. June, I think you are next.
Yeah, so first of all, I would love to spend like 5 hours just delving into every single aspect of the study, all the different corridors, getting really nitty-gritty on all the statistics. This is 100% super happy to see that DOTI is doing something so evidence-based and really going out there and actually getting data. So my question involves these sort of numbers that you presented on the neighborhood bikeways and the PBLs. You presented percentage-based changes, but I'd be curious to see what the absolute number changes are. So one example I sort of gave people was that hey, if you've got a corridor that has 100 riders already, and then you add a PBL and you get up to 120, and then a corridor that has 10 riders and you add a neighborhood bikeway and it gets up to just 20 people, you would log a 50% increase of ridership on the neighborhood bikeway and only a 20% on the PBL. And you might erroneously conclude the neighborhood bikeway elicited more ridership, even though the PBL added twice as many in terms of an absolute number. So what did those absolute numbers look like between PBLs and neighborhood bikeways? And just generally speaking, how have you been controlling for sort of times when low volume data counts can really skew those percentages?
That is a great question, June, particularly about the bike volumes. I think, so our evaluation study did short-term counts. We did a moment in time before the project and a moment in time afterwards. That's really good for speed data. Usually it's good for traffic volumes, and a couple other things. As you noted, bicycle volumes we need to take with a grain of salt because it is so seasonal, it is so wildly variable. In the end, we really want to rely on our long-term longitudinal bicycle volume counters, which maybe Taylor can speak to, but we do have a program that's doing that and looking at that data. So, because 100%, that is exactly a really good observation there. And we're kind of just reporting at a moment in time. Specifically for the bicycle volumes, it's a little tricky.
Yeah. I consider the biggest takeaway for me, other than all these cool statistics that we just shared, is that we need more data. All of these data points and all these kind of conclusions are based on like a week of data or less, or like a few days or a point in time, taken, before and after implementation. So I think the exciting thing here is that as we continue to build this program and we continue to do evaluations, we'll have more and more data, and we'll be able to draw more statistically grounded conclusions and make better decisions. So this is just kind of a quick, our first cut and our first attempt at doing this. And I think that there's a lot of room to grow, and it'll be an exciting roller coaster.
So quick follow-up on that. I would love for all this sort of data to be public and to be released. I don't know if you all are doing some kind of peer review or what kind of scientific rigor you're putting the study through. Because hey, I've got a scientific background. I've done statistics. I know you can totally you can move the numbers around to sort of have the data support your hypothesis. But I'd love to sort of just make sure that this data that you've collected and this really important work is as rigorously done as possible, because I think then that just makes it so much easier for us to apply it with confidence.
Sure. And yeah, I'll just say, June, we did not hit a research project level thoroughness with this. I'll be the first to admit that. Mostly due to resources. And I think if we were to do that, we'd be able to study a couple treatments really, really thoroughly. Right now, we really had to spread the peanut butter. And so it's a good caveat to everything. There's a couple things that were like, yeah, that doesn't make much sense, and we probably only because we have a very minimal sample size. There's a couple things that's like, oh, this actually makes sense, and we're not seeing much variation in the data, right? That we can at least start to say, okay, for now, the data that we have continues to point this way, right? But yeah, I will say it was not a statistically significant kind of thing. We can't really do that on this scale with the money that we have. That is something that we've talked about, and like, hey, maybe there's something we can approach UCD about or DU about, or whoever, to maybe try to accomplish something like that if needed on a couple of these treatments. But certainly, yeah, we can share some of the numbers with you in particular. We can certainly share that and after this meeting.
Yeah, I would love that. Whatever data, sort of interpretations, results you've got, that just sounds
Sure.
really interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. Julie.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for this presentation, and again, like everyone said, showing kind of the science behind how you're saying something's improved. I know I used to work on that Spear Broadway crossing, and it was like taking your life in your hands every time you had to go get on the bus on the other side of the street. So I'm glad to see that one in particular. I assume that was the Spear crossing you were talking about. The maps were a little hard to see.
Yeah, I think that is the 13th Ave one that's talking about. Yeah, 13th and Spear. Yep.
Yeah, that was always like terrifying. So
thank you, Jake.
All right. I'm definitely on Team June here, and I would love the data because I'm a nerd more than anything, because this is really exciting to see. And actually, one of the things you shared changed one of my priors, which is really fun when that happens. So I would love to see more. And then I think a lot of the sorry, this might just be overly nerdy and really excited to apply the learnings, but I think a lot of the numbers that were shared were averages. And I think one thing that might be interesting is to look at the modes and what's typical behavior in addition, to kind of weed out some extreme road users that might not be representative. I think, yeah, that's just interesting to me what most people are doing more than what the math average is. And then
Yeah. And I think that point's well taken. I think I think for sake of brevity today, we couldn't dive into that, but we certainly have. I think kind of getting to what you're talking about is like we have the data on a quarter by quarter basis for weekday average average during the total week, weekday, weekend, and then you can actually look at before and after for those. And it starts to get real interesting and starting to compare like, and that's kind of some of the roadway characteristic type stuff that we started to get into, like which ones had parking on it, which ones how wide were these roadways, what were the spacing of the treatments along those roadways, and how did that affect speeds and things of that nature. So yeah, we definitely have that. We just didn't report it out here in this kind of brief. Yeah.
I'd love anything you have. I'm in Camp June on there.
Okay.
I want to see it all. And then I just want to. So one of the learnings was about the chicanes, and I just want to make sure I totally understand it so that I'm not taking away any misinformation on it. It's that the chicanes weren't. I know this was a bikeway study. Are we seeing that on chicanes that are not on bikeways as well? Or is this really, really isolated to chicanes on bikeways? And I know you guys are really bike focused, so this might be an unfair question.
It was just the ones we evaluated were only on chicanes on bikeways, predominantly because that's the only ones that really exist in Denver. There is some really good examples of chicanes that I actually think are effective in even the metro area that are not placed on bikeways. The chicanes we're talking about were these ones. Can you guys see my screen? It was these ones where you have the bulb out coming on one side and then on the other, and then usually there's a third actually. And they were only on bikeways, so we only studied the bikeway ones. Yeah.
There's some like pseudo chicanes on 13th and 14th Avenues, like I think near Congress Park. And that's the only thing I was curious if that was. I don't know that they're full, but they're
like
kind of like road
extensions, like just.
No, they're not. They're kind of like a road diet plus a curve more than a chicane.
Oh, okay. It's where the lane, the lanes shift. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And those we don't have data on. Those we should treat separate. Don't take this lesson and apply it to those.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect.
Correct. Yes, that is thank you for clarifying. I should clarify that. That's very specific to what you're seeing on the screen here on neighborhood bikeways. What from our video data, what we were finding is that it basically creates a long channel. where if you have cars opposing on the long channel and they see someone, or they see that it's clear, they want to rush through that before someone else comes. And there's that going on. If it's just a pinch point, we actually found different results. If it's just one of these pinch points at one location, it's a little different. And people feel like it's a little narrower too, I think. And so, and these also didn't have super good results with the bike community either, because it felt like they were in a channel too, and they had cars coming at them for potentially 100 feet, right? So, yeah.
Oh, and then one last thing, the stat about trying to change street signs, I think was one of them. That one's great because it proves that we should hire traffic engineers and designers that are really good at designing bike facilities, right? So that's a great stat.
Yeah, job security, right?
Yeah.
Hey, yeah.
Great. Well, seeing no more questions, I know we're a little bit over. Brett, Taylor, thank you so much for hanging with us at 5:30 on a Tuesday evening. So really appreciate the work that you are doing, not only towards furthering Denver Moves Everyone and getting more people on bikes, but really diving into the why and making things a little bit more accessible here. So thanks again.
I'm so sorry. I would love to ask a super quick final, I promise, final question.
Yeah.
For it.
So on the stress data that you collected, it's listed that was anonymous. So do you not have a way to normalize for demographics with that data?
I don't.
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
I don't. Because it's pulled from your wearable.
Yeah.
But only if you indicate your gender or age on that.
Yeah, because like a facility might be more comfortable for like a regular bike commuter and they might use it more, but maybe we want to get the interested but concerned crowd who also, especially lower income folks like me, I don't have a wearable because I don't want to spend money on that. So that just might be a bias. So I'm a little bit worried about that data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely biased data to the folks that want to track their fitness. We did have some wearables that we were able to give to folks who weren't able to buy their own, but there was a very limited amount of those that we could kind of loan out to folks.
And these are some of the questions why we haven't yet proliferated the use of the data for some of these purposes, June. So great question. Yeah. But yeah, thank you everyone. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks.
And what you do here.
Yeah, thanks again, Brett. Thanks again, Taylor. Really appreciate you both coming, and thanks again. We will move over to the budget side of our conversation. As many of you know, DOTI is the advisory board. It's charged with advising DOTI on policy and on budget, and budget obviously is a big part of it. The budget cycle really starts this time of year and rolls all the way, starts well before now and rolls all the way to when the mayor presents his budget to the city in September-October timeframe. So there's a lot of interesting conversations to be had. Nick, Shane, I saw you guys are off video. Would you guys like to chime in and add any color commentary to get us kind of started on the conversation?
Well, yeah, I mostly wanted to introduce Shane O'Neill. So I think this is the first time Shane's spoken with this group. Shane is our Director of Budget and Finance on there. And so, yeah, just certainly let's give Mr. O'Neill a warm welcome on here. Alan, you kind of said it. We're at kind of an interim period. You know, I think everyone really enjoyed or I certainly enjoyed the budget exercise we did last month. And yeah, I think Shane just mostly at this point, it's kind of mostly timeline updates, but I don't want to steal his thunder here. So I will turn it over to Mr. O'Neill.
Well, I appreciate that, Nick. Thanks for letting me join tonight. It's great to have this exposure and get to meet everybody and hear all the great dialogue that's going around. So just kind of give a brief update on the timeline. So we kicked it off internally within DOTI about end of March, early April in terms of working with our internal teams. And then we actually just submitted our general fund operating request as well as our capital discretionary project request on Friday. And the next step in the process is to finalize the special revenue funds, which is our transportation and mobility, as well as our volume-based pricing funds, which are due at the end of June. From there, the 2025 base budgets will go to council on July 1st, and the mayor will publicly release the proposed city budget on September 15th, or before September 15th per city charter. And then from there, agencies will present to city council on budget topics. Somewhere between September and October, that timeline is still, it just depends on how everything flows. And then from there, the final appropriation ordinance will be completed in November, accompanied by that long bill that we have every year.
Great, Shane. Thanks so much for that timing update. Clearly lots and lots of moving parts going on. And Nick, I saw you lean in there. Anything else you wanted to add?
Nope, I think you got it there. Just, yeah, wanted to give that quick update, and certainly if there's any questions, but you know, we're back to the same routine of public information on that. So yeah, but happy to help Shane with any questions.
Yeah, as Nick alluded to, the ultimately, you know, DOTI submits to the mayor, and it is the mayor's budget, and historical purview of the mayor in Denver is that budget's fairly confidential during the summer months, right up until it's unveiled to the public in September. So really grateful for DOTI of doing that budget exercise last month for us to really try to craft and you know, show the tweaks that this board would make. Shane, anything else you'd like to add before we dive into a little more in-depth discussion on our end?
No, just other than I appreciate you folks going through that exercise. It's always great to be able to see the tangibles kind of come back to us and then compare as to what we're really seeing out there. So it was a great feedback tool for us. So we appreciate it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. So on that note, many of you had asked to do an individual version of the budget because the time allotted, you know, like me, I will analyze the heck out of something, spend hours looking at it, thinking about adjusting little percentage points in here. Had asked to see that and tweak that and submit your own budget. I had gotten a few messages from folks that just submitted it today that weren't able to quite get it in time for last night's deadline for me to consolidate. So we don't have a consolidated report today because we want to have everyone's voice. We also, you know, I wanted to put it out to the group to see if there's anybody that would benefit from having maybe a few more days to review it if you haven't had a chance to go in there and make the tweaks or adjustments. Quick show of hands, either raising digitally or on your screen. Is there anyone that would like a few more days to look at it before? Yeah, great. I'm seeing. So let's do that. We'll push. How about we say, do you guys think Saturday would be reasonable for getting it back to me? Does that sound okay to everybody? Great. And Andy, June, we can take it offline since you all weren't privy to the conversation last month. Happy to give you a little more depth and detail on that. So yeah, Eileen saying Friday. So yeah, let's say Saturday, I think would be more than adequate then for everybody to dive into that spreadsheet. Along those lines, kind of the next conversation is historically, we as a board have submitted a letter to DOTI in the springtime, giving our thoughts on general high-level picture of the budget. So everybody in this group should have received a copy of the letter over email. And I just wanted to share my screen. Anita was nice enough to give me screen sharing privileges here so everyone can see it. And I put a link in chat already for that. And we'll share here, but I think part of the reason why we didn't see a lot of comments is this is a very similar letter to the one that we sent last fall with a few of the very high level goals along here, talking about in looking for ways. I think anyone that's been on this board for a few years realizes that the budget to accomplish Denver Moves Everyone 2050 and many of the other important projects like Vision Zero and Safe Routes to Schools that DOTI has at its discretion is quite small in the grand scheme of things. So one of the bullet points that we're looking at suggesting as a group is going through and looking for additional revenue pathways, whether through things like enterprise funds or additional fee structures or federal, state, local grants. More emphasis on achieving Vision Zero goals. We've heard, obviously some chatter that this will be a big focus of DOTI going forward, but I think it's important that they hear it from the board or continue to hear it from the board. Investment in automated enforcement is something that we've talked about recently as a board as well, that folks were interested in. Looking at a few revenue generating lines around the impact fee to make sure the right of ways in state of good repair for some of the contractors that might be carving up the sidewalks and streets and things like that. Also, looking on, great. Jake had a great suggestion. Original note was right-of-way enforcement for bike lanes, but sidewalks and transit lanes, which is something that's relatively new in Denver, I think is a great addition. So I'd love to add that if there are no objections. Talking about mobility goals, also, piloting, not a massive investment, but a small pilot program to make our bike lanes accessible year round as well, is something else that we also had on the fall letter as well. We also asked that cuts not be made to certainly Vision Zero or some of the great multimodal investments that have been made over the last few years to not lapse the important progress, and continue to have emphasis on equity. So the neighborhoods that have historically have been underinvested in get an investment to kind of bring them up to standards that some of the communities in Denver have historically gotten over the last 100 or so years. We'll stop there for a second. Any questions, thoughts? Hopefully folks have had time to add any major additions to this already, but any thoughts to this or edits that you all would like to chat about? Seeing Joe shaking his head no. Anybody want to chime in?
No, this
Gary.
is Julie.
Oh yeah, Julie, go ahead first and then we'll go to Gary.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't see, I just read the letter really quickly now, but I didn't see it beforehand, which is why I don't have any comment. I don't have any changes, but I didn't respond because I don't recall seeing it. And I'm not behind. I generally get through email at least within a day or two. So I apologize.
Yeah. And apologies if I accidentally, I think I sent it to everybody on the board, but if I missed you, Julie, I'm like extreme apologies on that. So if you have any comments as you get a chance to add it over here, feel welcome to. We'll give you a moment to kind of percolate over it. So feel free to
No, it
chime
does
in.
feel very much like what we've already all agreed on.
Great. Gary, and then June and Eileen.
Thanks. What struck me out of the exercise last month was DOTI only has about 1/10 of the resources that it takes on an annual basis to achieve what I think they consider as 100%. In the letter, although I agree with the encouragement to increase or not decrease in various different ways, I believe to be fair, we should consider areas where decreases in the proposed annual budget should be considered to offset increases in other programs. And I guess if all of us would simply think about the negative side of this exercise versus the encouragement side, I think we may be able to provide better guidance to DOTI. So that's what I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you for that input, Gary. I think that's a great thing for us to consider for sure. June.
Yeah, I will say, Gary, I'm interested to see if you had suggestions on areas for cuts. I know I've looked at the DOTI budget a lot before, and in addition to our priorities not being fully funded, I don't think anything is fully funded at the level that we would want it to be. So I have a really hard time recommending cuts to anything, frankly. Even road paving, for example, our pavement condition continues to decline year after year. And I have a hard time still even recommending removing funds from that, because at a certain point we fall below federal standards and we start to face other issues. I think my actual comment here was the impact fee about the destruction of right-of-way of DOTI assets. I don't have a ton of information about that, but I'm continually wary of impact fees because their potential impacts to affordability. But I'd be very curious to sort of see where that idea came from and what would be the expected impact fee and what sort of the behavior we're looking to discourage and where the money would actually go. We need new revenue streams, but we should add them responsibly and carefully. So I'd just be curious with more detail around that.
Yeah, June and Jake, I can't remember if you added this bullet point in or if it was me a few years ago, so feel welcome to chime in.
On the impact fee one?
Yeah.
We might want to clarify it because I think that impact fees are often used to describe something charged to a developer. I think when we had originally talked about this, it was actually we had meant it as a impact fee due to like utility construction, and particularly in response to like 5G installations really doing a lot of damage to city road infrastructure. They're doing those service cuts and then they are refilling them, but they don't last as long as the road pavement. So it was, how do we kind of deal with the fact that the impact of these massive cuts for like fiber installs were taking a real toll on our roads as well as our pavement markings. Like a lot of bike lanes and crosswalks in particular were getting removed or like halfway removed. So we might want to clarify that, Alan. I'm 90% sure that we really meant it targeted towards people doing in right-of-way construction rather than necessarily developers.
Yeah, I've added in the word utility, and I'll add in the term in the right of way. And the other thing, again, this is a board level kind of recommendation, June. It's not calling out specifics. It's more kind of broad brush strokes, right? And it says at the very least, we should look to reform our LUs so the street is brought back to its prior state, not only in terms but in pavement, in terms of marking. So yeah, does that kind of capture it well, Jake? Your recommended change?
Yeah. So bringing the street back to prior state, I think, is the main emphasis. Is something I would definitely support. If the proper way to do that is an impact fee or a rules change, I'm fine with it. Just want to happy we got the clarity that it's specifically construction within the right of way that destroys, previous pavement markings or previous dotting work that we want restored.
Great. Jake, are you happy with that change to clarify?
Yeah, I think actually, June, I know in your part of town there's like a lot of like lead water replacements, and I know that like those pavements are not smooth. Like they are rocky. So I'm sure on your Brompton you felt them, and I think that's what we're trying to capture. So hopefully that text edit accomplishes that.
Great. Eileen.
Okay, thank you. First of all, when I was reading this letter, I couldn't put my finger on it, but it just didn't feel like it had enough oomph. And so that's what I rose my hand to say. And I was hoping by the time I would speak, I would be able to articulate that a little bit more clearly. And then Gary made his point, and I have to say that I actually really agree with Gary because even though like he didn't have a specific idea, and I do have one just to prompt a conversation, I think that we were appointed to help advise DOTI on policy priorities and budget priorities, and not everything can be a priority. We have a really tight budget, and we all already know that not everything can be implemented. So we should take a stand. I think that it's okay for us to take a stand and say, hey, we think this is a priority and we recommend deprioritizing this in the budget to elevate this. So for example, if I remember correctly, Jake, we were in the same group together. I think we had like a really fun conversation about actually reducing the frequency of the paving, because if we did that, it would allow us to get some funds to redirect towards, I think, protected bike lanes in just our example. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that specifically for this letter, but that's an example that I think that budget priority exercise that we'll all hopefully finish this week could really help elevate that. When we did the exercise, we saw some themes around this area, and about reducing the budget in this area. And if the city did agree to do that, we might be able to see an advancement in our goals in another area that we deem a priority. So I'm just getting to the tough conversation of not everything can be a priority, and that does mean deprioritizing some things. So I would encourage us to have that tough conversation. I don't know what the timing is on this letter. Maybe it will be difficult from a timing perspective, but I would strongly encourage us all to lean into that tough conversation, because the answer just can't be like, yay, just pour more money in here and not back up DOTI to also have those tough conversations. I think that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great input. I think you and Jerry and Gary, sorry, hit the nail on the head that really we do have to have a tough conversation, right? Because it is a very, to use a phrase I've heard used before, champagne taste for our goals on a beer budget, right? So I think we really do need to think about like, hey, what small areas do we invest in? What do we dial down on? So I think that's important. To answer your question around timing, it's really this month. We need to vote on it today to get this out the door. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to really, over the coming year, we get to do this again in the fall, we get to do this again next spring, is to really, as a budget and finance committee, by the way, opportunity is available for co-chairing that or chairing that. There is an opportunity to really dive into that, right? So I think, for purposes of today's letter, I don't know if we can articulate it in the next 9 minutes, but I think the spreadsheet does a really good job of it. I think the exercise of dialing things up and dialing things down really allows us to articulate as a board, each one of us, exactly what we would dial up and down.
Can I just add, Alan, I'm going to push you on that. Since we know that we can't actually participate in the budget process anyway, does this letter really have to go to Amy this month? Because my point is that if we maybe just take a little bit more time to add some very specific recommendations to this letter and we put it off for a month, like we already know it's a tough call anyway for this letter to make a huge influence, and because they can't share the information with us. So I mean, it's a long budget process. So I don't know, I'm just going to push you a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly open to it. I think this letter has more
Think
impact
about
if I think the letter certainly has more impact if we said it now than waiting a month. And I think the time to really add the specifics was leading up to this meeting, as the email stated. But if
you
we
sent that email not that long ago. I mean, it was only a couple of days ago, right?
it was last week, I think. I want to say last Monday.
Still, like that's still not that long to actually talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's all over a document, right?
Sure. Yeah. I think we got 2 comments on it, so the hope is that since we only have 8 minutes left right now, was that people would provide input before the meeting on here. And so if people had specifics on ideas, like as described in the email, that people would call it out here, right? But if I'm hearing that the board would like to push to next month and potentially having less of an impact, it'll be complete with the mayor at that point and not with DOTI, we could do that for sure.
I guess I'm just not sold that the letter has that much of an impact anyway. So I'd rather send a letter that has really specific recommendations that have are very specific that we all really get behind than a letter that might be higher level. I don't want to make it, and I'm not suggesting this to be argumentative or negative in any sense, but just to push us to be more specific.
Great. Well, let's go to Joe and Jake, and then we can go back to your point about if we delay this another month. Jake or Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think I'm in agreement that the letter should go as is, because I don't think it, again, no matter what we do, we're dealing with such small funds, okay? And so from the bigger picture, moving $100,000 or $1 million from one to another, I think we wanted to express kind of where our feelings lie, whether it gets $1 million or $1.5 million. I don't think it changes anything. As Gary pointed out, there's not enough money to do much of anything. And the real money is either in bonds or something like that. So I'm a little frustrated that, yeah, we can move some stuff around that shows what we prioritize. but it doesn't really help the situation. It barely helps the situation. The other comment I have is when you said you want to return it to existing conditions, I would put current standards. Because unfortunately, contractors say, well, the road was in bad shape anyway. So I patched it and it's still in bad shape. So just current standards, what everybody should do it to. And then as far as, you know, the thing, I'd like to see it out just so we show where our priorities lie and then follow up with a letter. As Eileen says, it's okay. So we're now a little more definitive of what we want to do exactly with that money. But I don't like waiting that month, as you said earlier. So, you know, that's about all I have to say.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the feedback, Joe. Jake?
Right, I have a couple comments, but hopefully they help us move along. I think I don't speak much Spanish, but my favorite Spanish expression is ¿por qué no los dos? Why not both? And I think that we could consider submitting this letter today and submitting an amendment down the line, which would give us some ability to do both, and that might accomplish something for everyone, for every side here. So that might be one suggestion I have. I also might challenge the fact that the hard decisions only need to be made within DOTI's budget. And I do think maybe we actually want to consider another statement in here about where DOTI's budget is compared to its peer cities. I know that the transition team on transportation called out that DOTI's budget was well below peer cities. And I think that I don't think that's inappropriate for us to call that out and challenge the city to reinvest in a department delivering basic city services. I think there are hard decisions that DOTI needs to make, but there can also be system-wide challenging decisions that we could challenge the mayor and the Department of Finance to consider whether outside of DOTI, there's room to better fund DOTI too.
Yeah. Do we have the ability as a board to deliberate letters specifically to the mayor and Department of Finance?
We can do whatever we want, June.
Yeah, we have
Right.
no charter restrictions.
Because, you know, I feel pretty good about the folks that we do have in DOTI. I think they've got the right priorities, generally speaking. But I'm not so sure about the mayor and the Department of Finance. So maybe that would be sort of what we do is we send out this letter, maybe with a bit more detail today. And then next month, we really come together on like a very specific budget letter where we go broader and we say, hey, Mayor, hey, Department of Finance, we got to emphasize like true traffic safety, public safety, investment in our infrastructure, investment in prosperity, you know, and really emphasize funding DOTI appropriately at the level it's due. And maybe that's sort of the compromise so that we get this letter out today and we still get in those more specific budget recommendations once it's the mayor's budget, once it's out of DOTI's hands.
I love that recommendation. Aileen, would you be okay with that as a strategy to get this out the door today and have a more in-depth addendum out next month that kind of accomplishes your goal of really going after those hard decisions?
Yeah, I actually mentioned that in the chat. So yes,
Great.
I think that's a really great compromise, and I appreciate Joe and Jake suggesting that.
Great. I love that. And I would I think Brian Carroll did a really good job of kind of educating me on the potential to do the real work of our board is oftentimes in the committee. So June, you know, thank you for showing up at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting last week. You know, for any of you guys that want to dive into this, I can see some of you guys are passionate about it, which is great. And I know timing doesn't always work out. But I would definitely encourage folks to hop in that committee because that's really where we do the work of crafting these letters and getting a lot of the more in-depth details and things like that out there. And as I said, definitely opportunities to co-chair Budget Finance Committee for anyone that's interested for sure. So we've got 2 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
I think we need to have a reset on that communication because I haven't received any committee information like in the last couple of months. But then I've been seeing these letters pop up at the meetings. And so I don't know what happened, but like I love helping to write these letters and making them more powerful. And if this was in a committee beforehand, I never, and I was part of a committee beforehand, but then I dropped off of, I don't know. I just don't know which committee this was in. So.
Yeah, no, it was in the Budget Finance Committee and
okay.
I checked and I think you and Julie were both on that email. So I apologize. I know everyone gets a million emails, so we can definitely try to send reminders and stuff like that in case it doesn't come across. And I can check offline to make sure I have the right emails for both of you, because that could have been the problem as well, for sure, of when those meetings are taking place. So yeah, but on that note, we do have 1 minute left on the effort to getting this out the door. Do we have a motion to send a vote on this letter?
Motioned.
And a
Second.
second? Great. All those in favor of getting the letter out the door as written right now, if you could raise your hand on here. Great, and I would make myself 11. So if you could lower your hand, so we have 10, 11 in favor, actually no, 12 in favor. I just saw another one pop in there at the last minute. Any opposed to sending out this letter? If you could raise your hand. We have one hand up still. Nope. Okay, none opposed. Any abstentions? Nope. Okay, it passes. That's 6 o'clock. We had a motion about, or we had a request to Federal Boulevard. I'd like to motion that we maybe take that to a subcommittee, similar to the way that Jake and Aileen did for the I-25 and Broadway, since I know that's a very timely thing. We could meet perhaps a couple times before next. So I'll send out an email about that for folks that want to get involved in that conversation about Federal Boulevard BRT, of delving into that and learning more about that. But I also want to be respectful of time and know we're a minute over. So we'll look forward to catching up with everybody next month.
Another
Thanks,
great
everyone.
meeting. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, very fine. Thank you for all the participation.